Shedeur Sanders didn't want to go to the Baltimore Ravens because the Baltimore Ravens had a black quarterback. Somebody hear that? Like, what? Who the hell this kid think he is?
Yeah.
No. It should have been.
Cam Newton just delivered a shocking blow against Shedeur Sanders. The former MVP couldn't believe Sanders turned down a chance to join the Baltimore Ravens, all because he didn't want to sit behind Lamar Jackson. Did Shedeur's bold choice just ruin his future before it even began? The NFL is all about big decisions. Draft picks, contracts, and the quick choices players make on the field can shape entire careers. But sometimes one decision sparks a much bigger storm. That's what happened when reports came out that Shedeur Sanders, the young quarterback and son of legend Deion Sanders, turned down a chance to play for the Baltimore Ravens. The reason? He didn't want to sit on the bench behind Lamar Jackson.
141st overall selection, but when he found out, he got word back to the Ravens that he preferred not to go to a place where he would be competing and backing up.
The news spread fast. Analysts gave their opinions, fans argued online, and then a powerful voice stepped in. Former NFL MVP Cam Newton, a quarterback who's lived through the highs and lows of the game, spoke out. His reaction turned the story into a major headline. To understand why this matters, let's rewind. In the build-up to the 2025 NFL Draft, Shedeur Sanders was one of the most talked-about prospects. Not only was he the son of Deion Sanders, one of the greatest cornerbacks in league history, but he also carried with him the spotlight of playing at Colorado under his father's coaching. His arm strength, accuracy, and poise made scouts pay attention. Yet despite his potential, there were questions. Was his success at Colorado a product of his father's system, or could he translate his talent to the NFL level? Would teams trust him as a franchise quarterback immediately, or would he need time to develop? When draft day came, the big names went off the board early. Sanders slid lower than many expected. That's where the Baltimore Ravens appeared ready to step in. According to NFL insider Adam Schefter, the Ravens were considering drafting Sanders in the 5th round. Baltimore saw value in having a young quarterback who could learn behind Lamar Jackson, their superstar and the face of the franchise. But then came the twist. Schefter reported that Sanders and his camp made it clear he did not want to be drafted by Baltimore if it meant sitting behind Lamar Jackson. In the NFL, the label of backup quarterback is complicated. Some embrace it as an opportunity to learn and bide their time. Others see it as a cage, a place where careers stall. Sanders' camp apparently believed the latter. By refusing Baltimore, Sanders signaled he wanted a clearer path to the starting role. In the end, he landed with the Cleveland Browns. But Cleveland was no paradise. Veteran Joe Flacco was still there. Rookie Dillon Gabriel joined the roster. Sanders found himself buried on the depth chart, the very situation he seemed to be avoiding. It was at this point that Cam Newton weighed in. Cam Newton is no stranger to quarterback controversy. A former Heisman winner, a #1 overall pick, and an NFL MVP, he experienced both superstardom and the brutal reality of losing a starting job. When he speaks on the life of a quarterback, people listen. Newton criticized Sanders' refusal to join the Ravens. To Newton, the chance to sit behind Lamar Jackson was not a punishment, but a blessing. He pointed out that Jackson represents everything a young quarterback should want to learn from. He is not just one of the most electrifying players in the league, but also a leader who has managed to avoid off-field drama, build trust within his team, and stay consistent despite immense pressure.
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Newton went further. He suggested that Sanders, given his own life experiences, might have been able to relate to Jackson on a personal level. Watching how Jackson handles fame, expectations, and responsibility could have shaped Sanders into a stronger professional. For Newton, turning down Baltimore was not just a missed opportunity. It was a mistake that could alter the trajectory of Sanders' career. Baltimore was an ideal landing spot for Shedeur Sanders on paper. Lamar Jackson's status as the unquestioned starter meant there was no rush. Sanders could have developed behind the scenes, learning the speed of the NFL without the pressure of being thrown into the fire. The Ravens system also fits mobile, athletic quarterbacks who can extend plays. Sanders, though not as dynamic a runner as Jackson, could have thrived in that scheme. Being in the same quarterback room as one of the most innovative offensive stars in the league could have opened doors few rookies ever get. Yet Sanders chose otherwise, And that is where the divide begins. By joining Cleveland, Sanders entered a different situation. The Browns, desperate for quarterback stability, had veterans and rookies fighting for roles. There was no clear mentor like Jackson. Instead, there was a battle for relevance, where experience often outweighs potential. Reports quickly pointed out the irony. Sanders avoided the backup role in Baltimore only to find himself behind Joe Flacco, a Super Bowl champion, and Dillon Gabriel, another rookie determined to prove himself. This was the context Cam Newton could not ignore. In his view, Sanders had not just missed an opportunity, he had actively chosen a harder path with fewer guarantees. One reason Newton's criticism resonated is because of how highly he spoke of Lamar Jackson. Newton described Jackson as a player whose talent is matched by character. Jackson has carried the Ravens, handled criticism about his style of play, and remained focused. Newton believes a young quarterback like Sanders should want to learn in Baltimore. Watching Lamar Jackson lead and handle pressure could be priceless. Newton knows this himself. He entered the NFL with huge hype, faced tough critics, and had to adjust his game. That gives his words weight. Sanders' choice also sparks a bigger debate. Should young quarterbacks play right away or sit and learn? Both paths have worked. Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith, Rodgers behind Favre, and Brady got his chance after an injury. On the other hand, Manning and Luck started from day one and still thrived. For Sanders, the decision leaned toward wanting to play sooner, but Newton argued the smarter choice was patience, especially behind a mentor like Lamar Jackson. When the news broke, social media exploded. Some fans defended Sanders, saying ambition is natural and no quarterback wants to sit in the shadows. Others echoed Newton's point, arguing that arrogance could derail a career before it even begins. Media outlets painted Sanders as disrespecting Lamar Jackson. Fair or not, that became the story. In the NFL, image can matter as much as talent. Cam Newton's career proves it. He was once an MVP and Super Bowl star, but injuries and team changes pushed him into backup roles. He knows how quickly things can change. That's why his message to Sanders was clear. Never waste a chance to learn, because the NFL rarely gives second chances. Lamar Jackson himself has become central to the story without saying a word. Jackson is often underappreciated despite his MVP resume. For a young player to refuse the chance to learn from him raises questions about respect within the league. Newton's defense of Jackson highlighted how other players view him. To them, Jackson is not just an athlete, but a role model. That makes Sanders' refusal look even more questionable in the eyes of veterans. For Shedeur Sanders, this isn't just about headlines. Teams may now question his attitude since the NFL values humility and patience. In Cleveland, he still has talent, but his path is unclear. The league is tough, and one choice can shape a career. Saying no to Baltimore and Lamar Jackson could define his future. Cam Newton's message was clear. Success takes time, learning, and the right chances. Shedeur's story isn't over. He could shine in Cleveland or regret the chance he passed. The real question is simple: did he make the right move or the wrong one?
That's one of the teams that does it at a high level. Why not go to Baltimore? And I said on the ESPN platform, if any team or any person can relate to a guy like Shedeur Sanders, it's Lamar Jackson. Why? I don't think Lamar Jackson gets enough credit for this and this only.
Cam Newton just unleashed a brutal take on Shedeur Sanders, and it's all because of a draft decision that stunned the NFL world. Newton didn't hold back, and what he said left everyone talking. The young quarterback, once considered a potential first-round pick, is buried on the Cleveland Browns depth chart. And as Newton sees it, Sanders may have missed out on a golden opportunity to learn from one of the NFL's most respected quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson. Shedeur Sanders entered the 2025 NFL Draft with the kind of hype that typically surrounds a surefire first-rounder. The son of Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, Shedeur had the pedigree, the college tape, and a massive fan following thanks to his electric performances at Colorado. But when the dust settled, Sanders wasn't picked in the first round, or the second, or even the third. He fell all the way to the fifth round before the Cleveland Browns finally took a chance on him. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, the unexpected slide may have been self-inflicted. Sanders allegedly told the Baltimore Ravens not to draft him, fearing he'd be stuck behind Lamar Jackson.
The Baltimore Ravens were going to draft Shedeur. They called Shedeur before doing that. And Shedeur told them, nah, I don't want to sit behind Lamar Jackson.
That single decision may have changed the entire course of his NFL journey. Cam Newton, no stranger to NFL spotlights and controversies himself, weighed in on the situation during a recent episode of ESPN's First Take. His message was loud and clear: Shedeur messed up. Newton called the situation a learning lesson about life, emphasizing how unpredictable the NFL can be. Newton pointed out that Jackson, one of the league's most dynamic and respected players, has never had any off-the-field controversies. He's been a model pro and a perfect mentor figure for a young QB with big expectations and even bigger media attention. Baltimore wasn't just a stable environment, it was one of the best possible landing spots for a rookie QB. With Lamar Jackson as the starter, Sanders wouldn't have faced immediate pressure to perform. Instead, he could have learned, grown, and sharpened his skills behind a quarterback who's been doubted, disrespected, and yet consistently delivers on the field. Cam Newton emphasized that exact point, suggesting Sanders could have benefited from watching how Lamar handles not just game-day challenges, but the off-field noise and public pressure. It's about more than just performing at an elite level, Newton explained. It's about how he manages so many different things outside of football. Instead, Shedeur opted for what Newton described as curtain number 2. That mystery destination turned out to be Cleveland, a team with its own set of quarterback questions. But rather than stepping into a clear path toward playing time, Sanders found himself third on the depth chart. Ahead of him, veteran Joe Flacco, who's had a career resurgence, and fellow rookie Dillon Gabriel, who is currently second string. That puts Sanders in a tough spot, buried on the bench with limited practice reps, minimal preseason momentum, and no clear timeline for seeing the field. For someone who reportedly declined Baltimore to avoid being a backup, he now finds himself in an even deeper hole. Newton didn't mince words. Well, in Cleveland, you gotta go through 2 individuals to insert yourself, as you know, the starter. Dillon Gabriel, who's now the second quarterback at hand, and then obviously, Joe Flacco. And when you consider those things, it's like, what situation is better, you know? Cam Newton isn't the only one criticizing Sanders. Former NFL quarterback Alex Smith also weighed in, calling the decision incredibly short-sighted. Smith, who spent years navigating QB depth charts and mentoring young players, said Baltimore's reputation for quarterback development should have been too good to pass up. Fans and analysts alike are now questioning whether Sanders' pre-draft mindset prioritized short-term opportunities over long-term development. And if so, was that a rookie mistake or a deeper misjudgment about how the NFL works? Newton touched on something deeper too, the issue of stardom. Shedeur Sanders entered the league not just as a talented QB, but as a celebrity. He's got the name, the brand, and the media magnetism. But that level of attention isn't always a good thing in NFL locker rooms. The idea here is that someone like Jackson, who's been under intense media scrutiny since his college days, could have mentored Sanders not just on the field, but off it. And for a young QB navigating the spotlight, that kind of mentorship is priceless. Sanders' situation in Cleveland raises serious concerns about development. Without game reps and with limited practice time, it becomes incredibly hard for a young quarterback to improve, especially one still adjusting to the speed and complexity of the NFL. Yes, Sanders flashed moments of brilliance during the preseason, but he also showed inconsistency. That's to be expected from a rookie. What's unclear is how Cleveland plans to develop him. Right now, it doesn't look like they're in a rush to move him up the ladder. If Sanders struggles down the road or fails to live up to expectations, this decision will resurface as a major turning point. The what-if surrounding Baltimore could become a permanent part of his narrative. Newton's perspective carries extra weight because he's lived through the ups and downs of being an NFL quarterback under the microscope. He knows what it's like to have the media dissect every move, to face doubters, and to deal with the pressure of being a franchise savior. His point isn't just about Lamar Jackson being a good quarterback, it's about understanding the full scope of the job. Sanders, he argues, passed up a chance to gain that insight firsthand, and that might haunt him. And with this particular situation, I don't want to get too aggressive, because when I talk about Shedeur is so sensitive because of the passion and desire that I have, not only just for him, but also for his father. That respect makes Newton's comments even more compelling. He's not criticizing to tear down, but to point out a missed opportunity. It's not over for Shedeur Sanders. Far from it. The NFL is full of second chances and redemption stories, but for now, the road ahead looks longer and tougher than it needed to be. Unless an injury or massive change shakes up the Browns' depth chart, Sanders may spend most of this season on the sidelines. But even that could be valuable if he uses it wisely. Learning the playbook, studying film, and preparing like a starter will be critical. If he can do that, and if he eventually gets a shot to prove himself, the narrative could shift. But the clock is ticking. Cam Newton's comments weren't meant to bash Shedeur Sanders, but they were undeniably pointed. The NFL is a league of moments, and missing the right one can set you back years. By turning down Baltimore, Sanders may have done just that. In an era where quarterbacks are expected to produce quickly, the margin for error is razor thin. Sanders' decision to bypass the Ravens, a team with structure, mentorship, and patience, might be remembered as one of the most controversial draft decisions in recent years. But it doesn't have to define him. The story isn't finished. What happens next is entirely up to Shedeur. The question is, will he learn from this, or will Cam Newton's warning become prophecy? Only time will tell. Sometimes in the NFL, karma hits harder than a linebacker blitz. The Cleveland Browns just learned this lesson the most painful way possible, and it all started with a rookie quarterback who thought he was too good for the Baltimore Ravens. Back in April's draft, the Ravens had their eyes on Shedeur Sanders. They planned to select him with the 141st pick in the 5th round. Baltimore saw Sanders as a smart backup plan for Lamar Jackson and maybe even a future trade piece if he developed well. But here's where things get interesting. Sanders didn't want any part of Baltimore. According to ESPN's report, Sanders made it clear he didn't want to sit behind a two-time MVP like Lamar Jackson. He wanted to go somewhere he could play right away. The Ravens were so unsure about Sanders' interests that they made a weird trade, moving back 5 spots just to buy themselves time. They traded their 4th-round pick and a 6th-rounder to Tennessee for a 5th-round pick and another 6th-rounder. At the time, Ravens GM Eric DeCosta called it an analytics thing and gave some long explanation that didn't make much sense. The real reason was simple. Baltimore was trying to reach Sanders and see if he actually wanted to be there. They weren't going to waste a pick on a player who would become a distraction. When they couldn't get confirmation from Sanders, they moved on and picked Alabama A&M offensive lineman Carson Vinson instead. 3 picks later, the Browns swooped in and grabbed Sanders at pick 144. Cleveland had already taken Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round, so Saturday became their quarterback shopping day. They even traded up with Seattle to make sure they got Sanders, beating the Philadelphia Eagles by just 1 spot. Fast forward to this past Sunday, and the karma train arrived right on schedule. The Browns traveled to Baltimore for Week 2, and Joe Flacco had what might be the worst game of his entire career. The 40-year-old quarterback looked every bit his age against his former team. Flacco completed just 25 of 45 passes for a measly 199 yards. He threw 1 touchdown and 1 interception, but the touchdown was pure luck. The ball should have been picked off by Marlon Humphrey, but it bounced right off his hands and into Cedric Tillman's arms in the end zone. The real damage came from Flacco's complete inability to move. The Ravens knew exactly how to attack their former quarterback. They dropped 7 defenders into coverage and dared Flacco to make plays with his feet. Everyone in the stadium knew that wasn't happening. Flacco went 0 for 5 passing outside the pocket with an interception. His numbers were so bad that it marked the worst expected points added per dropback outside the pocket of his entire career. But the Ravens weren't done. They forced a fumble from Flacco that linebacker Roquan Smith returned 63 yards for a touchdown. The final score read 41-17, but it felt even worse than that for Cleveland. The Browns' defense actually played well, holding Lamar Jackson and Baltimore to just 242 total yards. But when your offense can't move the ball and keeps giving the other team short fields, even a good defense can't save you. Meanwhile, Sanders sat on the bench as the emergency quarterback, watching the team that wanted to draft him destroy the team he chose instead. After the game, reporters asked Sanders about the draft day report. His response was telling. Sanders said his memory doesn't go back that far and that he's focused on the present. He acted like the draft happened years ago instead of just 5 months earlier. The most painful part for Browns fans came in garbage time. With the game already decided, coach Kevin Stefanski pulled Flacco and put in rookie Dillon Gabriel. Gabriel immediately looked more comfortable than Flacco had all day. He went 3 for 3 passing and led a touchdown drive, throwing an 8-yard scoring pass to Dylan Sampson. In just a few plays, Gabriel moved the offense more smoothly than anyone had seen all